And welcome to the Hot Biz Fluent podcast, where we get all up in your business. So let's talk. Today's guests are brought to you by Crush City Realty Group, your premier Houston real estate experts, and luxury real estate agent Elissa Emmons, where everything she touches turns to sold. And finally, Covo Capital, fast, flexible financing for all your commercial lending needs. This podcast is for informational purposes only. The views expressed in this podcast may not be those of the Biz Fluent podcast or management. Don't forget to stay to the end to find out how to get some of our amazing merch. Now let's get down to business.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first show of the new year. As you have already noticed, we're a day late. Sorry, we had some things occur, one of which is actually a little bit sad. I'm going to bring Josh on. So we're going to have to change our video, Josh. We're going to have to change our intro video.
Yeah. I was like, why are you saying me sad?
No, not sad because of you. I'm just bringing you on because it's sad. We lost our third spot here. And so, Elissa Emmons has a new focus in the year. She's going to be focusing on her real estate business and felt like that the podcast was kind of encroaching on that time a little bit and decided to step away. And we fully understand because trust me, we invest a decent amount of time in it ourselves.
People don't realize how much. I saw an article yesterday that literally just shouted out how difficult it was to run an actual podcast and to keep it going and to get it going and all the different things that it entails. So yeah,
it's
but
crazy.
we salute her, and I think she's going to do great in the new year, and we wish her the best. So
absolutely,
and she may come back on as a soft guest host every once in a while. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So that all being said, man, dude, there was this guy that you talked about for a little while that actually runs man, he's got a bunch of hats he wears, but one of the ones that he does is he actually operates a podcast and he's got a pretty decent following. Do you want to go ahead and introduce him?
Yeah. So Tino Urbino is going to come on with us here in a second. And he's been a family friend of ours for a number of years now. My wife worked with him for a couple of years, and we just kind of clicked really quickly on goals and ideas and trajectory and philosophy and, man, just about everything. And we've almost become kind of an extended family. We love his wife and his daughters that he's allowed us to share time with and dinners with. He's also, and I don't know if we'll get into it too much on this because it's not really business related, but we are both major foodies, and we love to experiment and cook. And so one of these days, hopefully we can even share some of that too, because he can cook some amazing meals. But Tino, man, just tell us a little bit about you and kind of where you want to focus the conversation today, and a little bit about your podcast and whatnot. But yeah, I'll let you take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it. So originally born and raised in Mexico City. I've been now in the States for close to 28 years. And in that lapse of time, I've been an entrepreneur. I started a couple of businesses, lost some, sold some, and ran from some of them. And in that, I've been primarily leading sales teams and involved in the security side of the industry. And I have a podcast called Executive Checkpoint, which is basically interviewing CEOs of active and growing companies in the security space. And so we have pretty good conversations with their background, their history, and their leadership style. And so it's always fun to learn from someone that has achieved that level of expertise to be the last call on a global corporation. And, so that's basically it. So I'm glad you guys invited me and excited to be in your show.
Heck yeah, man.
Your ring just reminded me of my ring, and I was like, "Oh crap! Didn't turn off my phone." But we're not clean here. We like the rough edges. It's okay.
yeah, absolutely. So, man, I can tell you what led to our podcast. We were looking. Josh and I already kind of have plans of grandeur in all different kinds of scopes all over the place. And one of the things that we had kind of talked about was being able to centralize it. How do we connect with people? How do we talk to people? But we also both really, really, really enjoy helping people grow. That's the whole reason my team has been developed as a real estate team. Josh on his side of finance, the company he's building, the way he's building his is all based not just on, hey, how do I make more money? As much as I'd love to make as much money as I possibly could, if I could make $1 billion a year, I'd be happy. But how can I help somebody else? Yeah, I would. But that's not the main goal. The main goal is helping other people grow. And so that's how we got started into podcasts, is because we were like, hey, we want to grow, but how do we connect with a number of people that we normally wouldn't be able to connect with, learn from them, and then also at the same time help get their name out there and help them grow. And a podcast was really kind of the answer. How about you?
It goes back to a little bit of legacy in the sense that I've talked to a lot of these folks, and like I was sharing, some of them are heads of these larger organizations, and really no one knows what it takes to get there, and their philosophy on how they, realize business, and also, simply connecting with a larger audience, just like you guys. But yeah, same motivation. How do we impact, in my case, an industry that sometimes is so tight knit that you don't get that knowledge unless you are on site learning from someone doing it. So I think that's the reason the show is kind of becoming a hit pretty quick. We're up to, I think, 20,000 views now on the reset or the little short videos.
Yep.
And I'll be honest with you, it's one of those things that I've been thinking about it for a long time.
Yep.
And a good friend of mine, Zia, which, thank you, we should have from the show here soon. She's been nagging me on, like, you have great connections. Let's just bring more people, invite them to just have a conversation. And you see, my girls, they do TikToks and whatnot, and they're fantastic. They make it look so easy. Man, I've always had a hard time just standing in front of a camera. And now it seems to be a lot easier, but yeah, it's a challenge.
Question for you there. So, like, one of the things we've noticed is it's our blooper reels that wind up really honestly driving the most, views and contact and connections and stuff like that. So, and like, we actually had this, one of the things that my team's goal is for the year is social media mastery. And I see, I'm really bad at trying to just give over. Like I told you from the beginning that it would be mostly Josh that would be talking in here. I won't shut up. So
I don't know a time that it hasn't been. It's either you or me. That's probably why I listen to it.
So, but one of the things that's funny is these two girls on my team are super, super awesome. And they like to do TikTok videos, but they are so, just like all of us, I guess, they are their own worst critic. And as soon as everything isn't perfect, perfect, the whole video is trash. Well, in the summertime, we did a commercial for one of our clients, and the client is the Star Luxury Apartments in downtown Houston. And we are their sole agents that are actually listing their apartments. We got them all set up on HAR. Like, we had to jump through quite a few hoops, even with our broker, to get these things leased out or to be able to even list them. And in that process, one of the things we wanted to do was we wanted to do an actual full, like, we wanted a 3-minute commercial that we could chop up, and we could do a bunch of different videos and really hone in on the Star. Well, so we had, like I told you, I'm a commercial agent, so I don't really mess with the residential stuff. So I was just there for the, hey, I'm JP Byers, one of the proprietors. But these girls did walkthroughs, and Jordan and Josh, my business partners, Josh and Jordan's the gentleman that's on my team. But they all did walkthroughs of these apartments, and one of them, one of the girls, her shoes were so noisy that it was overshadowing her speech, and so she just wore socks. And so the videographer was supposed to shoot her from the waist up, but he didn't for some reason, and he shot her, and she's got like these big, huge Christmas socks on in the middle of freaking July, and And so we posted the video of her walking around in her socks, and man, we got hits like crazy.
Yeah.
That's the good and bad of social media is like,
Yeah.
it's you might get a ton of hits. Does it really, we had a gentleman working for us for a little while. He's actually, I wouldn't say he's big in social media, but he's pretty well known within his circles. And he'd always brag about his clientele and the people he knows. But I was like, you got to realize those people aren't transferring over to actual clients of ours. You may get a ton of hits. You may get some ad revenue, which people need to understand. The ad revenue off these is minuscule. It's pennies on the dollar. What people are getting the money off of is actual sponsors coming in, buying time once you get to that level. But yeah, that's the good and bad of social media. Tino, how long did it take you to get to where you are today? I can't remember when you started. I know it was roughly around when we came to dinner that one time. It wasn't that much long, much more before that. But how long have you been going at this? Just to give people an understanding of the work and the time it takes to get to that.
Yeah, it's I think more than anything is consistency, and we talked about that, right? So it's a lot of pre-planning and doing a lot of legwork ahead of time, right? So for me, it was mainly talking to some of my key contacts, folks that I really knew that will leverage their network with what I wanted to accomplish. And so that's a point, I think, to emphasize recommendation for someone starting a podcast. Be strategic on who you want to bring to your podcast, simply because their social network might leverage your podcast, especially when you're starting. And we all know some of these folks that have they might not have a huge social media presence, but they're well connected in places like LinkedIn, and that can leverage your viewership. I can think of a couple people that were in the show that have huge followings, and again, they've been in the industry for 20 years. They're well recognized, well known. They're public speakers, and so them coming to the show give me kind of a leg up. Interesting fact, LinkedIn likes when you do, for example, my podcast is primarily LinkedIn. And of course, a big portion of doing a podcast is to grow your network and grow your opportunities that you can get business wise. But LinkedIn enjoys when you do a live podcast or anything live, it automatically gives you a higher ranking once you post. I thought that was pretty interesting. But believe it or not, very rarely will get a whole lot of viewership on the live show, which, I explain that to people coming on board to do a podcast because they're expecting, thousands of views. Reality is that's not going to be the case in the first 15, 20, 30 episodes, right? But the one thing that I actively do after a show is three things. One, we use software to segment the 45-minute show into smaller capsules, and those are sound bites that are easy to digest. They're very consumable when you post them, and that we post on all the different platforms: LinkedIn, Facebook.
Do you mind? So do you mind real quick? So the short reels are the ones that really come through. And so like I've played around with a couple different programs to cut them up. Are you cutting these things up, or do you have somebody that's working with you to make sure that you get, 1 minute or less, or are you using AI?
I'm using AI. So the script is the software that I like to use. It's not perfect, so you have to kind of finagle with it, but it's only 35 minutes of my day, maybe an hour and a half if I really want to dig in.
Okay.
But it produces 8 to 10 sound bites of 20, 30 seconds a piece.
Which one are you looking at? Which one are you using?
It's called the script, DISCRIT or PT, the script. And what it does is, I dump the show. One of the things that I wanted to make sure I didn't have to invest too much time is editing, because I've edited before and I enjoy it, and that's
it's
a
a
problem.
rabbit hole though. But it's a rabbit hole.
I'm the same way, man. I can get into something. I've learned to go quicker. I've learned to be efficient, but it's like, yeah, but now I can do this. Oh, I could do this. Like your mind just starts going. Psh,
yeah,
creative side.
If you're a little creative, yeah. So the discipline here is shoot it live, and to be a good show, I will say if you do some do the legwork and intel and build little dossier on some of these folks, find the right questions. That's always going to be, it's going to save you time. It doesn't seem like it because you're still investing time to do it, but then it becomes a better product and you get better questions. So a long time ago, someone told me that the better the question, the better the answer you're gonna get. So if you take a little time on that side, usually the guests go, "Wow, that's a great question." Now you know you got him. So
Right. Like, so one of my favorite people to watch interview is actually Elon Musk. Like, I don't know that I would say I'm a huge fan of Elon Musk. I wouldn't say I don't like him either, but he's just kind of a different guy, and I don't know where I stand with him. The one thing I know though is watching him interview, and I don't care whether it's a horrible interviewer or if it's an amazing interviewer. That guy's like, he just does not answer quick. I'm the worst person in the world. And my wife will tell you, even other people's wives like Amy will tell you that I am really good at listening so that I can immediately give you an answer. And there's a lot of times I'll have an answer for you before you've even finished the first 3 words of your sentence. Whereas Elon Musk stops. Like, you can watch him. He's literally computing everything that came in and then compiling an answer. And it might take him 5 or 6 or 7 seconds. But then he answers. And when he answers, you know that he means exactly what he says. And that to me is, you just don't find a lot of people that do that.
Yeah. And
you said that a while ago, and ever since you said that, I've been trying to do that more because I'm the same way as you, JP. I'm a quick.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the reason I'd like Elon Musk is just because he thinks unlike anybody else on this planet. I mean, he sees things at such a different level that he's almost have to translate to 5-year-olds to explain. It's like, let me tell you how we're going to be an interplanetary race and how we're going to remove the limits on what you think are limits. It's an interesting person for sure.
Well, I think it's almost the exact opposite. I think the problem is he has to explain to adults what kids already conceive.
There you go. That's a different perspective. Yeah. I think, such a level of intellect sometimes is just beyond, but you're right. I mean, he's a sharp guy for sure.
Well, we tend to dumb ourselves down to an extent too, depending on who we talk to, what we build as practice and habit in our lives. I mean, we could go on and on. There's a lot of intricacies to how we learn, speak, communicate, all that stuff anyways. But I agree to an extent. You look at children who haven't been influenced by certain things, and they tend to not have those roadblocks and can understand things quickly. At the same time, they also don't understand things because they haven't experienced enough. So it's it depends on what you're looking at and how you're looking at it. But yeah, I would agree with that too. As far as your podcast, I mean, the one thing I love about what you did was you niched into not only just talking to, because we talk to CEOs too. We want to talk to CEOs. We want to talk to sales guys. We want to talk to anybody in the industry of business. And maybe that's even too big of a reach, but I think our niche is that we're trying to keep it casual and we're not trying to sell everybody on some business principles that you have to do in order to make these, millions of dollars. But you've niched into that and such a cool, people don't realize how big of an industry that is in your world. I mean, I know it because my wife is in it as well to an extent. Yeah. And I learn, man, I get to learn stuff every day out of her, and she does the same thing with me. So give me a little background on why did you even I never asked you that. Why did you even how did you get into that niche? Even in your sales, your normal job, everyday job, how did you get into that?
Well, so I've been in sales and marketing for over 20 years now. And
hold on a second too, because like I said earlier, he was a scuba diver instructor down in Mexico at one time. Yeah. I mean, if you look at where I came from to now too, you go, how do you connect those two? So scuba diver instructor. Am I too close again?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I know you're excited, but don't eat your mic.
I'm so excited. I need a leash so that it only lets me get so close. That looked terrible.
Oh my God. This is gonna be great.
Tino, how did you?
Josh, when you guys make this into an audio, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh
And
yes,
have to pause and explain what just happened because nobody can see it.
it's better that the audience does not know.
Oh, there you go.
It's all right.
So yeah. So how did you get to before I made crude movements? How did you get to into this industry and this niche? Where did you come from, and how did you get here?
You know what? It's funny. Every time, most of the people I have in the show, if you ask, we ask them how you ended up in this industry, right? And most of them, few of them have a career path where law or law enforcement or some of them, majority of them come from stumbling into security, right? And my case is no different. So I was at the time I was a consultant. I own my own company. I was consulting different businesses on how to grow their sales, how to grow their or systems to grow their companies, and I still do some of that. Um, but one of my clients was this group in Dallas that wanted to increase their number of customers. So we created a program for them. He got really excited. They were pretty successful, went from 350 people to about 3,000 at the end of almost
Huge return.
Yeah, big return. They were very happy. The problem with their model, and just not to get too much into it, but they were hiring people and paying them hourly. And what I told this guy is, well, you have the wrong people. You need someone with motivation. So throw the hourly, hire people, commission, results based, and that just exploded. They have a good product. It was well compensated, and the company just grew like crazy. So one of his friends was in Houston, and they own a security company, and they were having problems retaining their folks. So they invited me for lunch to just briefly understand what they were doing, give them a little bit of advice. And in that conversation, I basically asked them what I thought were basic questions. You know, what's your cost of acquisition per person you hire? They have no idea. They didn't know what that was, which simply put is, how much does it cost you to onboard someone, and how long does it take you to get your money, at least on that investment, out of them? Meaning they stay how long, how many sales they put. And so the matrix to figure out, okay, I have a good hire, right? And they didn't know that. And they were at the time putting signs on the road saying jobs available. I'm like, who are you going to get? Who answers that sign on the road? And so we scaled that to be more systematic, elevate the quality of individuals coming in, the retention went up, and yada, yada. So that's how I got in security. Eventually, they offered me a permanent position with them. And from them, I went to manufacturing with a European company and doing business development. And I just been moving. Now I'm managing the national accounts for this other group that I'm do this for, and their Mexico territory, growing the Mexican market for them. So I get to see my family.
Those are two things. Those are two things that you don't have a lot of people that understand. It's kind of one of the reasons why I really got into commercial, because when I got started in sales to begin with, I got started in sales for a trucking company. And the first thing my boss asked me when he transitioned me was, so what's your ROI? And I'm like, I don't even know what you just said, man. Old Roy, like the food, dog food. I don't even know what you're talking about. And he's like, no, your return on investment. I'm paying you X number of dollars to sit your butt in that chair and make phone calls. How many phone calls are you making? How much money are you making me for the money I'm spending on you? And it was kind of opened my whole mind to everything. And so now when I go to spend money on anything in my company, I understand there needs to be a return. And I look at everything in the same way that I would if I was trying to get money, and I need at least 125 to 150%. So like if I'm going to go try to get money from Josh, I got to make 125 to 150% of whatever I'm actually borrowing is going to cost me. And so it's just like, there's got to be an ROI there. But then the cost of acquisition, that's a whole nother thing. You can't pull your ROI if you don't know what your cost is.
Right.
And there's so many people in every industry that have no clue. And so like I started off in residential, and I paid Zillow, just like a lot of agents pay Zillow. And I was paying Zillow $1,000 a month. And I can tell you that my ROI was about 3.25. And it seemed really stupid to quit doing Zillow, because for every $1,000 I spent, I earned 3.5 to 3.25 after I got done paying everybody. And so it's like it kind of makes sense, except I had to look at it and say, but I'm paying somebody who's trying to put me out of business anyway. So why would I want to give money? It'd be like giving money to your enemy who's trying to kill you. It just doesn't work. So those are two concepts that
Slow
I think
death.
very slow death, death of 1,000 needle pricks. And so those are two concepts that I don't think we've ever even talked about them with any of our guests as an ROI versus maybe with your manufacturing buddy. We might have talked about ROI there when they ship stuff over to China versus actually having it manufactured here in the US. But,
Well, and speaking of manufacturing, I wanted to ask you this, Tina, when you said that, because I truly believe this. I think one of the cool parts about going into manufacturing, at least some part in your career, is I think it's one of the most unique sales positions you can have because of the fact that you're actually dealing with so many different mindsets. You've got engineers, you've got owners, you've got project managers. All these people think and act and communicate in different ways. And if I had to put one thing on my career that really pushed it to another level was and I struggled in it when I was in manufacturing for a little bit, but once I gathered what was going on and how to fluctuate my own presence in the industry, man, I would say that helped me a ton. Would you say the same thing when you were in manufacturing, that you kind of had the same experience? And you probably do somewhat of the same now too, because you're dealing with architects, you're dealing with GCs still, you're dealing with a number of different people within that career as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think kind of going back to the sales career and evolution, and someone that might be starting or has a new in business. I think the evolution of sales is you're first very transactional, and you deal with one type of person, and that's what you see sometimes in sales training. A lot of basic exchange between memorize this objection and here's the answer, right? So they're memory driven conversations, right? It's not almost natural. And then you move from that to solutions kind of selling, right? Where you're finding what companies want and you figure out a solution and you sell that. And then you find something more complex where the sales cycle is not transactional, is not a buying, here's the money, or few days or weeks, is years. And in that gap, you have conversations which, to your point, feel like different languages, right? You're talking to the business side where they don't really care what the widget does, is why and how it's gonna make our business better or more efficient, or why not. And you got to translate that in the simplest way, because that might not be as technical as your engineers or as specific as your GC. When they're building something, they want a specificity, sounds like an engineer. But difference is, one is highly technical, the other one is very instructive, right? And then, of course, internally you have to have the same conversations. In all of it has to be friendly some way, somehow. Of course, if you have anyone in construction, and JP, this, nothing ever goes as planned.
no.
And takes forever to be decided, and when it's decided, it has to happen now. And
Yep.
so I think that you're right. Manufacturing is an interesting animal. Anybody doing that and is starting in a career, I'll say that evolution in your sales career is getting to a position where you have to speak those different languages and adjust the speed and how simplify or how technical you wanna get. So yeah, I think that's it's been interesting.
So I got a question for you from the sales perspective. And when you're talking about being a consultant, how important is it for you to actually be able to, at KW, So I'm a KW commercial rep, which means I'm also a part of the Keller Williams family, and so right now, being a part of KW Clear Lake, one of the things that we really talk about is we say, when you're making phone calls, come from contribution, right? And so you're talking about how this widget works. How do you teach people to dig and find the right way to come from contribution, if that makes sense?
I think scripts are pretty norm when someone is brand new. I think and again, I'm going back from beginning to. I think when you're brand new, the best thing you can do is uh,
Right.
learn a script and say it so many times. Then the next time you say it sounds so natural. Then the
Yes.
person listening to it won't feel like you're pitching it, right?
Right.
Also, I will say that now, I mean, I had said, but ChatGPT, just throw it in there and ask, craft it to where it's gonna be sound like something you want to hear. It's not a pitch. I think that's the biggest mistake. People sound so pitchy, and
No one wants to be sold.
no, you know what? Honestly, to me, is asking the questions. That's always been being curious. I think it's a big uh, defining characteristic of someone that wants to be successful. Because the more curious you are, the more you learn. The more you learn, the better you get. And you know what? Being curious also leads you to failure, and failure is a great way to learn. Sometimes expensive,
Great teacher.
but yeah, it's a great teacher. And we our system of education and even companies and our parents tell you, hey, you should not be making that many mistakes, or they don't want you to be in those situations. And the reality is, the better you
The more
fail,
mistakes. Yeah.
the greater experience you gain, right?
Well, have you ever read John Maxwell's Failing Forward? I mean, it's all about just failing the right way. And as long as you pick yourself up, you learn the lesson,
I'll
then
tell you what,
you move forward.
Well,
me-
and when you look at super successful people, you tend to look at them and you see their successes because their successes are so great that they get talked about more. But that doesn't mean that they're not making failure. They're not having. I mean, people bust Trump about how many businesses he's had fail. Well, he's risked a ton in very risky markets to make the money he's made.
Sure.
That's not bad business. That's making mistakes. People make mistakes, and I guarantee you he learned off every single one and didn't make it again. And that's the key. It's not about making the mistakes. It's about not doing them and not repeating them as much as possible.
Yeah, I tell you the one thing that I love is because I feel like is my mantra now, but challenges are preparation for greatness. And I think that there's a book that I really tell people, you should read. In fact, I just posted something about 12 books for the next 12 months. Read one a month, and if you're a good reader, that sounds like very little. The catch is read it, understand it, and share it, right? So if you read it and you understand it and you can share it, then you gain something from it. So people read a book and go, check, next, right? And that's what happens a lot with business books and motivational books. People read them, but they don't understand them. They don't take the time to do it. So one book a month. Go ahead.
That's a great piece of advice.
Yeah, it's have you ever heard and I know Josh is about to say something because it's a book I always bring up. It's one of my absolute favorite books outside of the Bible is The Go Giver. Have you ever heard of The Go Giver?
No, who wrote it?
Goodness, I can't remember their names, but I read it twice a year. And one of the things that I like about it, and what you just said is don't just read the book to read the book. It shouldn't be read the book because it's on my checklist. Read the book because I want to actually learn from it. And so in the Go Giver, there's 5 principles of being a go giver, and five principles to winning. And in those 5 principles, this gentleman meets an incredibly wealthy man. And he's like, man, I don't understand how you've got all this. He's like, don't worry. I'm literally going to show you how to get to this level. And I'm going to do it in 5 days. But in order for you to do this, I need you to understand that I'm going to provide the principle for that day. We're going to go over it. We're going to discuss it. And then before you go to bed, they're eating lunch every day. So it's only a 1-hour session. And then before you go home every day, you're going to do the task so that you can not just hear it and understand it, but also practice it. And so the one thing that was really cool was he literally took and was like, hey, hear, understand, do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Action.
that's and
See, and
exactly.
I'm gonna step in and say I love that because I think it's on a similar path as what Tina was saying. But I love what Tina was saying because the step further was I'm gonna share it and teach it to somebody else. Which in sales and executives level sales, it's all about relationships. That's the other big part of it. If you're able to take a concept that you not only are reading, then you're trying to understand, and you understand that by sharing and teaching it. Now you're doing what you're just talking about, JP. You're doing it, but you're actually sharing it too. You're creating a connection. You're making somebody else understand the message. You're giving them some piece of knowledge, and they're going to try and reciprocate that gift as well. So I think I like not to knock yours because I think that is a great book and you do talk about it all the time.
I do.
But I like Tino's where he said share it with somebody else. I think that's a great concept because you're typically gonna get something in return. People like to reciprocate with those that are being given.
Right.
When you get something, you want to give something back. When JP hands me a deal, I'm like, man, I got to find some other property or something like that that's going to be out there. Unfortunately, the way it works with my industry, we don't get as many that way, so I don't get to give them back as much. But when I do, I'm like, hey, JP's my first guy, so I love to give him a Steve. That sounded terrible too.
Before I forget, let me tell you the name of the book is The Traveler's Gift. By Andy Andrews, and great speaker. My favorite speaker. I worked for that industry years ago, and so I have a great opportunity to meet some of those folks that people read about. So, anyways, but yeah, that's one thing that, from a sales professional standpoint of view, just never stop learning. Just always keep yourself. You become more interesting. You have a lot more things to talk about. Josh and we talked about this before. I don't chase business. Never have, never will. I think one of the reasons some of the folks that come to the show do so is because we establish a relationship where, I'm like, hey, let's go get lunch. We know we're going to have a great conversation, right? Yeah, we're going to talk about business, but it's an engaging conversation. I try to stay on top of whatever I know that will be interesting to these folks, and general and business, or combination of industry and personal, and that's how you grow relationships long term, right?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And that's
Got to make that connection. Got to make that connection. Sometimes I get frustrated with my career path when I think back on it, of all the different places I went and what I did. And, I was successful and failed in certain things, and succeeded and failed in one job alone, not just, succeeded in one job and failed at another job. But then at the same time, I go back and I think, man, there's so many things I can speak to because I did so many things. So I don't think there's necessarily even a correct career path. But man, I remember this is where I was going with this. It's gonna be a loose connection, but I talk to LinkedIn consultants all the time on how to better my LinkedIn page, because I'm really a believer in LinkedIn. I think it's a great system of software, although they are doing some things that are really peeving me off lately with all the marketing and advertising they're pushing on there with these IMs. But the consultant that I talked to, he said, I was talking about, what do I put in here? And he goes, remember, it's not a resume. This is about you. This is how you connect to people. So yeah, you'll put some things in that's a resume, but you got to put more than that. And he even went as detailed as put your high school on there. Like anything that you can connect to somebody on in that LinkedIn, that's what you would speak about, talk about, connect to other people on. So unlike a resume where you're very targeted in what you're showing the interviewer, hey, this is who I am in this business segment. It's different on LinkedIn where you're trying to just connect with as many people as you can. So while my segment is commercial lending, maybe a guy went to my high school. Maybe a guy went to the Woodlands. Maybe he went to my competing high school and played football against my high school, and we can talk about that. So it's so important to be so diverse in what you can speak about. I read the news every single day. I read both perspectives of news. I read MSNBC and CNN. I read Fox and Breitbart. So I can speak to either side, no matter what I believe, I can speak to it. So it's fun to think about my career path and where I've come from. And I know, Tino, you can speak to that too, going back to speaking about, being a licensed instructor for I wanted to say snorkeling, but scuba diving.
You don't have to be licensed for snorkeling, buddy.
Yeah, I am. I'm a licensed snorkeler.
That was a great gig. I enjoyed it. I did it. Probably I retired and I'll go back and do it again. I mean, it was my
But
office
it's something
was.
you can always speak to, and it's also part of your personal life that breathes life into you when you're tired of the business side.
So all the girls, everybody, got them all certified. So wherever we go, usually is warm and diving.
Yeah.
What do you think is the one thing you would attribute to your success in life now that you would like to share with others? Whether they're and I want it in two answers. One for someone who's starting out, and even one for who, since you've been experienced for a number of years, like myself and JP, what would you give to the newbie fresh off the dock trying to get in? Because that's a very valuable place to be. And what would you give for someone who's started their career, maybe not, 20 years, but maybe in that first 5 to 10 years of their career? What would you say made you successful, and how would you share that success with those people?
That usually will be a fumble of an answer just because it's such a,
It's a big question.
Yeah. But I've been working in a book, and I've been defining some of these thoughts. So when
that's
that comes,
awesome.
I'll let you know. And again, it goes back to contribution, right? JP mentioned it earlier, and I think that is everybody needs a little bit of shortcut. And I think if you can provide that experience, knowledge, and why not, to someone starting, why not, or someone in the middle of something that just needs to hear a different perspective. So, but to your point, I will say someone just starting, specifically in sales and in business. Mm-hmm. Two things that are going to define who you talk to and how you are perceived is going to be your personal credibility. And that personal credibility is going to come from the way you communicate, the way you dress, the way you write. Nowadays, that's a massive impact on the way people perceive you. And those either going to open doors or close doors. When you're early on in your career, finding that mentor, that person that has the years, I promise you, I think Josh and JP, you guys will agree with this. Someone who's been doing this in business or sales or entrepreneurship for a while tend to be generous with their knowledge. We want to share with people, right? And so if you can find that mentor and ask questions, and I would say the best way to do that is approach someone and say, look, I admire you for XYZ reason. I don't know what I can bring of value to you, but I would love for you to be of value to my life. And so just be open to do that. And even someone, you were asking, someone is already in that career, surround yourself with people that are doing what you want to do. I mean, I still want to, I mean, that's the one thing I've never stopped learning. I never stopped growing. I always want more responsibility, more opportunities, so surround yourself, someone who's been in business. Your problems today are the problems that someone had years ago that can be an advisor. And where you think your life is in the point where it's no return, you don't know what to do, that network of people that you surrounded yourself with and are looking at the bigger, better things in life can give you perspective, if nothing else, to say it like, sit in the corner, lick your wounds, you will be fine. And sometimes just that advice is great. Or they might say, hey, contact such and such person, or here's a connection, or throw you a bone, so to speak, right?
Sometimes you need that. You need somebody to give you the peace that you understand that, like, hey, you're not the first person to be there. You're not the last person that's gonna be there. Just keep pushing. I mean, it sounds stupid. You got to be like Dory. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Right? I mean, it's the stupidest thing in the world. But the last sermon,
that's so funny.
The last sermon I preached about being a goldfish. And it was like, hey, the best baseball players, obviously, as you can see, I'm an Astros fan. The best baseball players in the world, they call them goldfish. And the reason is because it was originally thought that a goldfish's short-term memory was 4 seconds long. And so that meant that between every single pitch, it didn't matter whether you were the one pitching, batting, or infield or outfield, every single pitch was a whole new game.
Yeah.
And so they don't take what happened before and hold it against themselves or the people around them. They take what happened before and forget about it. Water off a duck's back and just move forward.
I'm gonna take that one, man. That's a great goldfish. I like it. This is true. You know what? Honestly, some people
There's a
don't
million
move
ways to say it.
forward. Yeah, some people don't move forward because they're just so vividly living in the past.
Yep.
Let me think. I just heard something I thought was brilliant. People that focus or look for happiness in the future never see it in the present.
Right.
Kind of goes hand to hand on that.
I like that one as well. Yeah.
Every every generation that comes out of college, most of them come out and they get into that circle of, well, I want to get hired, but the companies won't hire me because I don't have experience. In order to get experience, I got to go get a job and get experience. So they shut down. And I remember thinking myself back then, because I had some good mentors, and I think we've said this before.
Yeah.
So that's great advice. And people like us, we love to be flattered by being mentors.
Yeah.
Because we've been successful. We know we're good at what we do, and we're confident people. But something that gives you the most confidence is when someone comes up and goes, hey, I want to learn from you. And I've got probably 5 kids, university and grads, that I still mentor. I also do Big Brothers, Big Sisters since he was 13. I'm so proud of Jesse. He doesn't hear it enough, but I've had this kid since he was 13, and man, he's just amazing. Like, freaking superb kid. Only kid out of the 8 or 9 kids he had in his family that's actually succeeded, owns a house, owns a car, has a wife and a kid. I mean, just spot on.
Talking about it,
yeah, I'm very proud of this kid. Anyways, but like, you get in that cycle of hearing that, and that's one of the things you got to get away from, is to go, hey, while part of that might be true, I want to be in the believers. I want to be in the people that are, say, I don't care about all that, and I don't want to care about the negativity part of it. Do you need to understand it? Yes. Do you need to be concerned with it and focus on it? No. You need to say, okay, the concept is still, I got to go get a job. Where can I go get a job? Who do I know? Who do I know that knows other people? I think that was the one mistake I probably made as a kid coming out, is I was told to get into a lot of internships, and I had 3, and I got offered by all of them. But what I really should have done was, it didn't even matter the jobs. It was, who did I know and who did I reach out to know? So I had a couple mentors too in there, but I should have reached out to even more. If I didn't touch on 20 to 30 people, it was a mistake. And so that I think that's probably a good point too, is not just the mentors, but just how many people do you know? How many people can you get in touch with before you even get out of school?
You know what?
Yeah.
And
okay, and we're running out of time, but so the second stage, somebody who's in their career 5 to 10 years, what advice would you give them?
You have to evolve. I don't care where you are and what you're doing, you have to evolve. We are right now in a very fluid moment in time for business and technology. And if you are not learning about AI and what it is and how it works, because you think that osmosis is going to bring it to you, you are going to lose big time. The next 5 years are going to be key for you to become an expert and applying it in your business, or an expert on applying it on somebody else's business. So to me, that's crucial. Right now it's almost like the creation of fire. That's how dramatic it is. And I can see it from my side of the equation in a global scale with some of these experts that
I actually would actually push it even further than you saying in the next 5 years. I give people less time than that. When you look at when you're looking at Simon Sinek's adoption bell curve, like I think we're at the top of the bell curve coming down on adoption. And I feel like I'm behind. I'm a year. I might even be 2 years behind on learning and adopting AI. And anybody that's waiting till the end,
oh no,
I'm not going to tell you to hang it up, but you're going to struggle.
Oh yeah,
or at least be employing the people that are using AI. So maybe you've divided out your work tasks. Make sure that those people are at least using.
You know what? For corporations, that's the advice we're giving them, right? So it is inevitable. It's common. is it's not a fad. It's here to stay. And if you don't have an expert on your team, find one. If
Yep.
you don't want to learn it, find somebody. It's
Yep.
going to be essential, right? In a commercial aspect or enterprise, and it's going to be a limitation for companies not to do it and do it correctly. So that will be my advice for someone today.
That's great advice. Yeah, conceptually, that's crazy to think about too, with how fast we're moving. You know, when you think about our generation and the ages that we were or are, sorry, and where we came from, and we kind of saw the whole path of everything happening. But we're in the stage now where these kids are literally going from, one technology to the next every 3 to 5 years,
Oh, yeah.
whereas we went from tube TV, black and white, to flat screens for $200, like in a blink of an eye, it
Right.
seems like. So
Yeah.
I always wonder how the brain will function, catch up, and maybe that's why we only use 20%, because we never technologically adapted to these things yet. And this could get into an entirely different topic and subject, but it just blows my mind sometimes to think about the progress of technology versus the prospect of learning. And honestly, America better do something pretty quick, because I think American learning is going down the tubes. But
Yeah.
Oh, that's been
how,
proven. And even Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk said that that's the reason why they needed to change their what is it?
our
Age?
culture, our educational culture is
Yep.
terrible.
Yeah.
Unless you got good parenting like Tino.
Well, but again, he's foreign national. He was not born here. He came here, and he came from a country that understood you had to fight for every penny you got.
Sure.
One of the sayings we have in our market center, in our KW commercial group, it's pretty small. We've got like 175 agents in the entire market center, and only 19 of us are commercial agents. And one of the things that we always say is the rent is due every day, and nobody's going to hand it to you.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have to go figure out how to earn it.
See, that's one thing that totally agree. I nothing has ever been given to me my entire life, and it's just been working since I'm 17. And yeah, I just don't remember last time someone just went here. You know what people are generous with? Knowledge.
Yep.
If you ask for it, they definitely. I've never been surrounded, and maybe it goes back to the conversation, right? You surround yourself with people that have and are successful. They don't mind sharing how. Ask them for a loan, maybe a different thing, but and then again, maybe with the right amount percent, right, Josh, that
I
might
mean,
become
we've talked about this before too. Collateral, cash flow, and credit is the three things a lender looks at. But the fourth thing we look at is credibility, and that's because banks still and lenders still look at, are you credible? Are you honest? Are you doing the intangibles? And if you're not doing the intangibles, all the other stuff doesn't now necessarily mean as much. So
Yeah, okay. Personal credibility, right? It goes a long way.
Exactly.
it's amazing too that people will not share a vehicle, but they'll share they'll share the secrets to their company, the secrets on how to do something, which is millions of times more valuable to an extent. And yet people don't take advantage of that. Like, I mean, you should be knowledge hungry. You should go out and respect those that have done it before you. Look for people who have already done it and take their word for it. And you don't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel. You can tweak a wheel, but you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Take what somebody else is successful and run with that, and keep pushing on that. So
The other thing I was thinking about, you mentioned that people getting, starting a career. You know what I don't see often is networking events of any kind. They're all over the city, right? Networking
Yep.
events, industry events, or just business. Someone showing up with not just unemployed, but just fresh out of college, just to understand what they're getting into. They should go to those events. You'll never know who you're going to meet. Some owners of businesses are there. Some managers hiring are going to be there, or just
good
professional
people to know
curiosity.
and get to know. And if that's your passion already,
I mean, if
why
I
would
still do that, and I'm sure you guys do similar thing, if you're starting your career, you most definitely should be looking at networking events to go to and engage.
people
Relation.
have got to get out of being reactive and be proactive. We were talking about this the other day on even on the lower end of the scale. When you start out, I think I was even talking to JP about this. I was like, when I was a kid, I was going around asking to mow yards. I was asking to do all these different things just to make some money, start to get into the workforce. I've been now an adult for 2 months. No. I've been an adult. I feel like I've been an adult. I've owned my house now for 11 years. I have not had once any kids in any neighborhoods come up and ask to mow my yard. And I think that's a culture. I mean, it's a minuscule detail. Like I didn't think about it until recently, but I was like, no kid. I was selling like when I was 6, remember the little spin thing, the art spin thing, and you drop the dots on it? I was selling those for 50, 75 cents to my neighbors. I would sell them anything.
So unfortunately it sucks, and we're gonna have to rely on our relationships like we're just talking about to get you back on, hopefully in the next 6 months, Tino, because this was an awesome conversation, man. But we unfortunately have to run our business. My phone won't stop ringing, and I'm trying to get out of here so we can go run and meet these guys. So, Tino, I can't tell you how friggin' awesome it's been meeting you, man. I know I've been distracted towards the end, and I apologize for that. But dude,
have I ever disappointed JP on the people that I know that I say, hey man, they're gonna be awesome. We just got to get them on.
Well, when we're talking about podcast people, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. No, everybody that's come on that you've brought on has been amazing, and Tino, you were nothing short of that as well. So, man, we really appreciate you coming on.
This was fun.
Let's do it. I was thinking about our typical ending is to give you a pitch.
But do you want it? Do you want a 15-second pitch?
I think we should, because he's got his podcast. Let's get the plug for that.
Oh yeah, there we go. Come on.
Give us a pitch for why people should listen to your podcast.
You got 15 seconds.
15-second elevator pitch.
2, 1, go.
So, Executive Checkpoint, we bring the leaders of industry in the security industry. Security touches everything. You are a civilian or a corporate guy, or in your school. All of this are going to imply technology, and you need to know why and how things going to impact you and your life and potentially your business. And so when you come to the show, you get to hear from the horse's mouth, the leaders that are making the changes in the industry and in your life.
What's the name of the podcast? What's the name of the podcast?
Executive Checkpoint. Executive Checkpoint. And you guys are on YouTube, LinkedIn,
Instagram, Facebook, basically. And now we're probably going on this just standby on not standby. This is a video podcast. So the podcast only sound is gonna coming up on all the favorite apps that you listen podcasts from.
Very cool.
Beautiful.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, thank you again so much, brother. You have a blessed day.
Thank you, Tino.
All right, man. Peace. That was good, dude, but we got to wrap this up. We don't have time to talk like we usually do. We got to get out of here, folks. We are late. Peace.
Like, subscribe.